from Bhutan and friends. Life is a very strange coincidence. 4 days back, just morning, I was talking to a professor in Tezpur University in Upper Assam, I think which is nearer to your place. He called me for a keynote address for a national seminar. I was a little hesitant because of lack of time. Then he said, you should come because you can enjoy this tour. It's only a 6 hours from here to Bhutan, and you can also visit Bhutan, he said. Then I was quite keen. So immediately I said, so I was really shocked about this strange coincidence, how life meets us. So I'm really happy to be here with you today and to share some of my views. I'll try to put forth some views. There are a couple of complications here. First, this is the first lecture, I believe, after the routine inaugural session. Secondly, there's a lot of difference between democracy as experienced by you and democracy as experienced by us. So I'm trying to be as relevant as possible to you. As Professor Surya has pointed out, I'm a journalist by training, a professor by profession, and a legislator by accident. So my university gave me leave, so I contested and I won as an independent candidate, defeating all the political parties. That's surprising. Both in 2007 and 2009. So it's a very interesting experience because when I've been interpreting and analyzing politics on television, so one day I got an idea, how long should I interpret, why can't I participate? So then I inquired with my university administration. They said, you don't need to resign. If that is a real clause, I wouldn't have contested at all. So then, good experience. If elected, fine. If not elected, experience in not getting elected also. Then that motivated me to contest and won 2 times. I'm still coming from the council session, actually. Today, we have a session which continued till 1:30. So the experience of analyzing politics, analyzing democracy as a journalist, as a political journalist, and as a legislator, and I also have experience in teaching to the civil servants. I'm a visiting faculty professor at National Academy of Administration, Mussoorie, National Police Academy, and other institutes which train Indian administrative services and Indian police service, etc. Given these experiences, try to contextualize what I am going to speak. So given these experiences, I hope some of the lessons which we are drawing, some of our experiences, may be of use for you in building a strong and sustainable democracy in Bhutan. Because your country, though is a small country, but is an example in the world for telling this world a concept called gross national happiness. This is a great contribution. I was keenly watching your Prime Minister's address to Indian Parliament, if I remember properly. He was speaking on the Human Happiness Index, gross national happiness, and how democracy functions and what kind of challenges we have been facing. Well, when I am telling this, it's only our challenges. Really, let me plead ignorance about your experience in democracy. But I'm sure the experience of democracy in India today will certainly be an experience of democracy in Bhutan, if not tomorrow, day after tomorrow, or after 5 years, provided you do not take certain measures. Firstly, what is the role of Parliament? The Parliament, the Indian Constitution have a very interesting checks and balances. No institution is all-powerful according to Indian Constitution. In fact, Parliament is also not supreme in India. Many of our parliamentarians also have a false notion that they are supreme. Well, they are not supreme. In some of the mature democracies, Parliament is supreme. But in India, Parliament is not supreme. The Constitution is supreme. the Parliament also does not have the power to amend the basic structure of the Constitution. Supreme Court also gave a judgment stating very clearly that the Parliament also doesn't have a power to amend the Constitution contrary to the basic structure of the Constitution, the liberty, the democracy, the secular character of India. These are some of uncompromising features of Indian Constitution which have been explained in the preamble. So as Constitution is supreme and the sovereignty lies with the people, because Indian Constitution starts with the revolutionary words, we the people of India. So sovereignty lies with the people. So there are checks and balances in Indian democracy. Parliament is elected by the people, and India is a large nation, as you know. We are a federal country according to the Constitution, though the experience may be different at times. So we also have, as like you, I believe I understand, you also have a National Council, a National Assembly. I don't know the constitution and composition of your National Council, but our upper house, Rajya Sabha, well, I belong to the upper house at the state level, but our composition is different, as that's not part of our subject. If there are any questions, I can answer that. So the upper house is the House of States. So India, in a federal country, we have a central government, state government, drawing powers from the Constitution of India. Therefore, the House of States, Rajya Sabha, what we call, represents the federal character of Indian polity. And the Lok Sabha, which is House of People, both of them constitute the Parliament, and this Parliament, the executive is accountable to the Parliament. And judiciary interprets the Constitution. And if a legislature makes a law contrary to the Constitution, the judicial review can crash that Constitution, that act, can question that act if it is unconstitutional. So this kind of checks, if a judge is corrupt, the legislature can impeach, the Parliament can impeach a judge. There is a long process for impeachment, but the Parliament can impeach judge. So this is the checks and balances. Executive, legislature, judiciary, drawing clearly the boundaries of their influence and activity. The first challenge that is facing is the erosion of this accountability to the legislature. So this is the first challenge which we are facing. Well, that does not mean there is no accountability. I am not condemning what we are experiencing. I am only critically evaluating our experience. Because if I stand before here and tell you that everything is fine and great with India, nothing is there, then I will be not only doing injustice to myself, but injustice to the program of training also. Because I should at least draw some of the lessons which we are critically looking at our democracy. But that is not to undermine or denigrate the greatest character of Indian democracy. In fact, Nobel Prize winning economist Amartya Sen, in his several books like India Development and Participation, India Economic Development and Social Opportunity, The Argumentative Indian, in all these books, Amartya Sen says very interesting things. I'll tell you this and then come back to the challenges. When we got independence in 1947, our first Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru delivered an historic address to the nation. That address is popularly called as the Tryst with the Destiny. And this address is taught to the children in the schools also. In this historic address, Nehru said, there are three important challenges before independent India. One, focus on democracy and civil rights. Two, overcoming the social inequalities that were the characteristic features of the colonial India. Three, achieving economic progress with an emphasis on the quality of life of the poor. So these are the three challenges which Nehru has positioned India. So if we have to evaluate the challenges of democracy, we have to actually evaluate where do we stand on these three things. Focus on democracy and civil rights, overcoming the social inequalities that were the characteristic features of colonial India. 3. Achieving economic progress with an emphasis on the quality of life of the poor. Amartya Sen was reflecting on a balance sheet of Indian democracy, and he said, the greatest achievement of independent India is the maintenance of democracy, and the biggest failure is the persistence of social inequalities. So social inequalities is the greatest failure, biggest failure. Maintenance of democracy. We have a free press, independent judiciary, reasonably vibrant civil society, independently functioning constitutional bodies like Election Commission of India, Comptroller and Auditor General of India, etc. We have a free press, military under civilian control, periodic elections, multi-party political system, peaceful transfer of power. So these are some of the great achievements of Indian democracy. But I'm not trying to paint a very glory picture of all that, because to learn from our democratic experience, we'll have to critically look at the failures and shortcomings so that we can rebuild, we can reorganize ourselves to create a stronger democracy. So the first challenge is the accountability of institutions is always under question. So in any democracy this happens, not only in India. There is a constant effort by the institutions of democracy to encroach upon the other. There's always a overactivism. As Justice Markandeya Karju, a very renowned Supreme Court advocate, pointed out, when judiciary was active, we call it as judicial activism. When executive and legislature do not function to the expectations of the people, judiciary comes to the rescue. This happened in India many a time. Where suppose the government does not take measures to correct a situation, the Supreme Court gives a judgment. When Taj Mahal was facing a pollution problem, Supreme Court gave a judgment forcing the government to take action. When viral fevers, not viral, dengue fever and other fevers were rampant, the court gave a judgment to take action immediately. So this is called judicial activism. At one point of time, what happened is, people welcomed judicial activism because people who were worried about the indifference or apathy or inaction or indecisiveness of executive and legislature were happy when judiciary was coming to the rescue. Certainly, when one institution does not function effectively, another institution asserts itself to fill that gap. To that extent, judicial activism was welcome. But a point of time, the situation has gone to a level where judiciary started usurping, started overacting, overreaching, and encroaching upon the powers of legislature also. Justice Markandeya Karju also once said, in a Supreme Court judgment he said, there is a difference between judicial activism and judicial anarchy, judicial adventurism. Democracy requires judicial activism, but democracy doesn't require adventurism, either executive or legislature or judiciary. Any wing of democracy should have activism, but not adventurism. There's a very slight demarcation between activism and adventurism. Sometimes adventurism is also seen as activism. But adventurism, I use the word with a deliberate intention that it cannot encroach upon the powers of the other. So the Supreme Court in this judgment said, what should be the height of a speed breaker? Should the court decide? Suppose what is the height of the speed breaker? Should the court decide? That is a question which the Supreme Court judgment asked. So there are pending cases. Around 62,000 cases are pending in Supreme Court of India. So there is a large pendency of cases. Suppose if the legislature or executive says, you courts are not clearing cases, so therefore we will take up those cases and clear. Do we accept it? So that is the question. The finest balance between executive, legislature and judiciary requires a convention and tradition of democracy which has to be strengthened. You require statesmanship among the people who man these institutions. You require the statesmanship who perform these functions, who lead these institutions. So the convention, tradition, statesmanship is required for a democracy to have this finest balance between executive, legislature and judiciary. What really happens when executive is not accountable to the legislature, or when the legislature becomes a routine kind of an exercise? Sometimes we feel this. We feel this as a member. I have been a member of the Legislative Council for the last 5 years. On many issues, serious debates are lacking. Suppose the first problem with the legislature is the legislature has to reflect the society, the plurality and diversity of society. So the legislature has to reflect the richness and experience of society. Every society has richness and experience. Every society has a knowledge, wisdom inbuilt in it. And the legislature should be in a position to draw that wisdom into the legislature. Many a time, the legislatures are unable to do this. So, for example, we have a great science and technology community in our country. India is a leader in biotechnology, in information communication technology. We are leader in many modern sciences like space science, nuclear science. But I have not found in assembly or legislative council 5 or 6 scientists. Never. There is one agriculture scientist in our legislative council, very renowned agriculture scientist who was nominated as a member, and except he, everybody speaks about agriculture. He gets a very little time. So he's a very renowned agriculture scientist called Professor M.V. Rao, who was a Rajiv Gandhi mission on pulses. He was wheat revolution. He was responsible for that. One of the outstanding scientists. But he gets a very little time. So Supreme Court in a judgment said, the parliamentary experience, the parliament should be in a position to draw and attract talent and intellect and experience from all spheres of life. But we have very serious obstacles. When I wanted to contest, my university says, I asked them a very simple question. Why should I go on loss of pay? I am not doing anything private service. I am contesting for legislative council, it's a public service. But my university rules say that I have to forego my salary, I have to forego my increments, and then contest. So can a person who wants to serve the country be disincentivized like this? In fact, university should say, we'll pay you salary, you go and contest. So, but I have to again fight a big bureaucratic battle to get my increments. So that was surprising. Even now I have to be on leave. As a professor, I said, I will teach and be a legislator. What is wrong? When I should be a teacher and a legislator. I should be a doctor and a legislator. I should be a lawyer and a legislator. I should be a scientist and a legislator. They said nothing to you, you should only be a legislator. So this kind of a great disconnect and divide between the plurality, diversity, richness and wisdom of society and its reflection in the legislative assemblies and council. As a result, what happens is, legislature has to debate on a very wide range of things, ranging from electronics to agriculture, from environment to social issues. Because legislature has no specialization. Many bills come to us. We debate on that. So as a result, the legislative scrutiny suffers because unless there is an expertise for someone, suppose I get information, Right to Information Act, and unless I am an expert in the field of information, I cannot scrutinize Right to Information Act. And most often, the legislative debates become a traditional, routine kind of a necessity. For necessity, we debate. I will tell you one experience also, to be more practical rather than bookish. We had a debate. We have a university, a very premier university called Jawaharlal Nehru Technological University. And this university was trifurcated. So the bill came to my legislative council. I was speaking on that bill. I asked a simple question. Why is the government trifurcating it? Then you know what is the answer of the minister? The minister said, this university is located in Hyderabad, Anantapur, Kakinada, 3 places, so we are dividing it into 3 universities. I said, why do you need an act for that? So if there is in 3 places, you need 3 universities. Then I suggested, sir, you are anyhow doing this, but I have a suggestion. Let Hyderabad JNTU be a center for excellence in information technology, biotechnology and knowledge technologies. Let the Anantapur JNTU be a center for excellence in desertification, wasteland technologies. Then let the Kakinada, which is nearer to the big hydrocarbon reserve called Krishna Godavari Basin. Anantapur is located in an area which has the lowest rainfall. The reason for those who have come from Bhutan, for you to understand. Then let this Kakinada, it is on a sea coast and very nearer to the India's largest oil and gas reserve. So I suggested, make the JNTU as a center of excellence in marine engineering and petrochemical engineering. You see the sensible suggestion. Let me sorry to tell you that the minister immediately said, very good suggestion, we will consider. Nothing happened. The fact is, he did not understand what I said. He does not want to reveal that. So this is how. Well, it is only for classroom consumption. So you are our neighbors, you are our friends. So we want to tell you openly. Otherwise, we don't tell. Perhaps if United States parliamentarians were here, I wouldn't have told. Because Bhutanese MPs are here, I am allowed to tell you. You are like my brothers and sisters. We have no objection to tell you. So we have no objection. We can be as realistic as possible. So this is the real thing. So I asked a question in legislature on a digital library. My question is simple. Whether to set up a digital library in Hyderabad. And immediately in the evening the minister rings me up and asks, sir, you have asked a question about digital library. I don't know what is digital library. Then I said, you may not know, but your officers know. Then he says, my officers are also not knowing anything. So then what should I? Then you said, sir, you will not keep quiet. I know what you are. You will rig me. You will cut me into pieces, sir. The minister says. So kindly save me, he says. Tomorrow I don't want to be a target of your attack. Please save me. You do one thing. Then I said, how can I save, sir? I am the person who is asking question. Sir, if you want to make any promise, I will make, but save me. Don't ask me about digital library. You ask me what you want to say, I will say. Then I told him, sir, then we have an agreement. You the moment I raise the issue, you stand up and say, I agreed to the proposal. Simple. Then the knowledgeable man, whatever he says is good for society, so therefore I accept it. Finished. So I thought it will be done. 3 years are over, nothing has been done. Nothing has been done. I am going to assurances committee, I am going everywhere. So the point I want to take is, it says, well, that doesn't mean that there are no experts in legislature. I am not telling this is the majority trend or I am not telling this is the mainstream trend. But I am only telling you that the parliamentary institution should be in a position to attract people from all fields of knowledge. I don't know about Bhutan, but you should try. You have to devise the political process. You have to devise the rules, regulations, so that the parliament will be a repository of human experience. Legislature will be a repository of the societal wisdom. Otherwise, the legislature cannot do justice. The 2 examples which I gave is not to undermine anybody, but to drive home an argument that legislatures should be repositories of human experience and the wisdom in society. Societal wisdom, it should be a cumulative societal wisdom. Otherwise, there are scientists, science, technology, culture. Suppose there is a question on dance. How can I speak on dance if I do not know what is dance? So on a music, on culture, on arts, on literature. So I should know what it is. So I should know suppose there is a law which comes. Otherwise what happens? We have a big debate going on IT Act. You might have read. There is a section called Section 66A. I don't know whether you read it or not. If there is a comment on Facebook, you can be arrested according to that section. And two women were arrested in Mumbai for posting a comment on Facebook. I don't know whether Bhutanese are still on on Facebook. Yes. Oh, good. Then you are also equal to us in democracy. So the IT Act or Section 66A says anybody who posts a comment on Facebook which the police thinks is incriminating, derogatory, then he or she can be arrested. And two women were arrested in Mumbai and became a national issue today. The union minister says this law is useless law. The law is passed by Parliament, interestingly. Why did this problem come? Perhaps this problem has come because there are not enough number of parliamentarians who have experience in dealing with issues of information technology, cyber security, and all these issues. So there should be, my argument is, to enrich the legislative debates, to ensure a greater legislative accountability of executive, then there should be a parliamentary institutions which attract the talent of different spheres. Secondly, the executive, another problem is democracy is a majority rule. So automatically the executive, the political executive, it has a majority in assemblies, in legislatures. Most often the executive does not respect the legislature. Legislative scrutiny of executive doesn't take place. I'll tell you one example because I wanted to be more practical with my experience. I'm a member of the Legislative Committee on Subordinate Legislation. I'm sure all of you know as parliamentarians what is subordinate legislation. To put it in a perspective, I will also tell the Parliament and legislatures makes laws. All of you know that. And some rules, in some laws, the rules are included. When as a legislature enact laws, the rules are part of the laws. In some cases, the laws do not mention rules, but delegate that power to make rules to the executive. What should executive do? Executive should formulate the rules because ultimately the law is operational according to rules. Because rules operationalize law. So the executive was given power by the legislature to frame the rules. So the rule says within 15 days or immediately before the completion of the session, the executive should come back to the legislature, place the rules before legislature. Am I right, sir? Is this the rule in Bhutan also, sir? Yes. So this is the rule. So the executive has to come back to the legislature with the rules. When I was a member of this legislative committee on subordinate legislation, we tried to understand, surprisingly, a law which is made 10 years ago. The rules were framed and rules were implemented for the last 10 years, but the rules were not placed before legislature. So the rules are implemented for 10 years, but they are not placed before legislature. So before placing legislature, they should come through this committee called Subordinate Legislation Committee. The Legislative Committee on Subordinate Legislation should scrutinize those rules, whether they are according to the Act or not, and then the rules should be adopted by the legislature. But 10 years back, 6 years back, the rules have not come to the legislature. Then I asked, why did they not come? Then the assembly officials tell that this committee never met, sir. So when the committee meets, then the rules come. So the officials were not keen on placing the rules. The rules were implemented. Well, it may sound technical. When I raise this issue, the official says, sir, it's only technical, sir. Rules are implemented already for 10 years. In some cases, the law is already lapsed also. Law is amended also. So, but this seriousness of democracy, the point which I am, with this example, with this illustration, the point I want to make is, it's a serious business, democracy. The legislators and executive should take it as a serious business. The problem is, when members of legislature do not take it as a serious business, then all these problems come. It's easy to make law, it's easy to frame rules, but the point is, how serious are we in looking at these things? How serious are we? So the problem of serious attitude, why is it lacking? The reason for this is the third point. What is expected of a legislator constitutionally, and what is the people's expectation of a legislature? So there is a conflict between these two in our country. So what the constitution expects from a legislator and what the people expect from the legislator. Surprisingly, people who are the voters of legislatures do not understand the difference between executive and legislature. The constitution says the business of the legislator is to make laws, frame laws, make rules, question the executive. That is the business of a legislator. But nowhere, including in a constituency like me, I was elected from the graduates constituency, as Professor pointed out. Only graduates of Hyderabad and adjoining two districts voted for me. So graduates means educated voters. Until today, in last 5 years, nobody has asked me what act you have enacted. But what they will ask me, sir, borewell in my colony, road in my colony, sir, our posts are delayed. So quite often a legislator is confronted with this work. And a member of the Legislative Assembly goes to his electorate. The electorate asks him road, asks him water, asks him drainage connections, asks him all those things which executive has to do, interestingly. So legislator becomes a mediator between the people and the executive. The legislator's business is not law making. Nobody asks whether he makes a law or not. Nobody asks whether he is attending to the legislature or also not. I have 99% attendance as a legislator. Nobody asked me how much attendance. It's out of my own conviction I am attending. So this is the problem. So the problem is the people, the legislators, the executive, ultimately everybody should take legislature serious. Legislative business is the most sacred business. We are representing the people because the NGOs, we have non-government organizations. NGOs have a limited power. They can only make some models. But the government has unlimited power. Normally in any given society, no other institution can match the power and resources of the government. Am I right, sir? Nobody can match. If we can really do, we can do many things. And legislature has become a means of advocacy. Legislature has to become advocacy. You have to sometimes do it. Sometimes you have to threaten on the floor of the house. My constituency includes a district called Rangareddy. This district was formed around 35 years ago. Till 2007, when I was elected, there was no government degree college in that entire district. Not a single government degree college in a district which is adjoining the state capital Hyderabad. You may think that it is educationally backward, but there are 160 engineering colleges in that district. Because it is nearer to the capital, all engineering colleges are located there. So I raised this issue in the Legislative Council for 1 year. Nothing happened. One day I said, if you do not announce the setting up of a degree college by 1:30 today, I will resign and sit on a hunger strike. I threatened it at 11 o'clock. By 12 o'clock, the finance minister comes to the house and says, we have already passed a GO setting up the college. So legislative activism can deliver things to the people. Legislative activism can deliver. But point is, institutions which have to be routinely functioning, you need some or other form of activism. I'll tell you one more experience. There is a school in Hyderabad. An officer, the district collector, in the name of rationalization, transferred all teachers from that school. All teachers. Only students are there. Teachers are transferred. 85 students were there. Teachers are transferred. This is how sometimes official activity, on paper they have rationalized, here surplus, there surplus, teachers were transferred, students were there. 20 days there were no teachers. So their teachers represented, nothing happened. They came to me, sir, you are our legislator, please come. Then I went there. And in a democracy, protest. We take a rally, we stage a dharna, I said, these are all traditional things. I will protest in an innovative manner. Then I told the district education officer, I came to the school, I found that there are no teachers. I am protesting. How do I protest? In protest, I will take classes from today. That is my protest. And I took a 2-hour class. I told DEO, I am teaching social studies, I am teaching English. You can't say that I don't know this. I don't know this, you can't say that. Then I told the children, I will continue to teach in protest till your teachers are appointed. After 2-hour class, the children came to me and said, sir, please come and teach even after teachers are appointed. I said, that is not my activity. So they were very happy. So believe me, next day when all the newspaper published on the front pages, because it is a novel, innovative protest. If it is a rally, nobody would have bothered. So innovative protest, they immediately published on photographs Professor K.Nageswar, member Legislative Council, taking a class in protest. Next day morning, by 11 o'clock, you will be surprised, 11 teachers were appointed. So that is the power of democracy. So with this example, the point I want to again draw is, the point I want to draw is, the legislature, there are two phases of a legislature. On one phase of the legislature is, the people have a different expectations of a legislator, which the Constitution does not expect from him. As I already explained to you, nobody asks you whether you are making a law or not. They will only ask you whether you are getting a road to my colony or a borewell to my house or some government schemes or welfare programs. So that is one problem. On the other side, there is an enormous influence for a legislator, both in the executive and society, which can be used as a legislative advocacy. The point which I want to make is, in a democracy, legislative advocacy can deliver many things. That's the beauty of democracy. If I were not a legislator, I could not have got 11 teachers to that school. Impossible. I'll tell you one more example, how legislative advocacy can deliver things in democracy. I come from a small village in Adilabad district, which is northernmost part of the state. After becoming legislator, I went to the village. There, the villagers told me that they need a tank in the village, which is not working. As a result, for 7-8 years, there are no crops. They wanted me to help. 20 years demand, 20-year-old demand. Then I said, I took a proposal to the Chief Minister, which cost around 60 lakh rupees, and told the Chief Minister, sir, we want a tank in my village, sir. The Chief Minister, 60 lakhs for one village. I said only one thing, sir, if you give me, I'll praise you. If you don't give me, I come on television every day. Every day I will tell that here is the Chief Minister who says he will build irrigation projects, but he will not sanction even a tank in my village. Then immediately the Chief Minister laughed and said, you are capable of doing that. So at least you were born in that village, I am sanctioning. He immediately sanctioned. Believe me, when I went to that village, 500 people came to me, and today they are getting 2 crops in that village. 20 years that village was represented, 20 years that village was represented by a minister, surprisingly. In all the governments, this party, that party, 20 years the local MLA was a minister. But they could not do it. I could do it with a small statement. This tells you the third dimension, the fourth estate, the media. With this illustration, what I want to point out is, not only legislative advocacy, the media advocacy also play an important role in delivery of democracy to the people. Well, democracy does not get operationalized just because you have a democratic constitution. Democracy just will not get operationalized just because you have a beautiful constitution and a good law-making house. It has to be operationalized on the ground. So, legislative advocacy, I gave you an example because I am trying to be as practical as possible. I hope it will be interesting to you rather than telling something theoretical. So, the media advocacy. So, the media can play an important role in democracy, in ensuring democratic action. Amartya Sen, in his research on famine, hunger, says a very interesting things. There are two comparisons, India and China. China is a great nation. has achieved significant victories in social and economic spheres compared to India. We appreciate that and we accept that. But on one thing, India was better than China, according to Amartya Sen. China could not conquer famines after independence, but India conquered famine. The last famine in India was in 42, Bengal famine. The reason was the multi-party political system and the independent media. These two, multi-party political system and independent media, acted as warning signals of an impending crisis. I'll tell you, this is what Amartya Sen said. It's a theoretical statement. So the multi-party political system and independent media provide the warning signals of an impending crisis. So the democracy has this inherent strength of a multi-party system and a vibrant media. What happens is, if something happening somewhere, if the governments do not take action, it will appear in the media. The moment it appears in the media, there will be enormous public pressure. The political institutions get active. The legislators get active. The local level political elite get active. And it becomes inevitable for the officer to implement it. So, the power of legislative advocacy, the power of media advocacy have to be unleashed apart from the judicial activism, so that the democracy will be actually delivered to the people. Well, there are many other things that can be done in improving the legislation. We have a system of parliamentary committees, and I don't know about your experience, but parliamentary committees proving to be very useful, because the advantage in the parliamentary committees is legislative assemblies and councils are under media scrutiny. As a result, what happens is, quite often the legislators will be hyperactive to attract the media, because they wanted to ensure that they are doing something to the people. So, but in parliamentary committees, it is something like the environment here. There is no media scrutiny, everything will be in academic debate. So the parliamentary committees play an important role in debating that law, in trying to look at the law from a more in-depth perspective. But again, the experience is parliamentary standing committee reports are not mandatory on government. Many a time, the government of the day does not implement the reports of the parliamentary standing committees. So that is the biggest problem. How much time I have, sir? How much time, sir? So the parliamentary standing committees is a very good experience. The advantage of a parliamentary standing committee is it can seriously analyze a law, because law requires a lot of expertise also. In fact, I always tell, to become a teacher you need a training. To become a doctor you need a training. To become an engineer you need a training. The only profession or occupation which is not requiring training is politics. So I don't know about your country, but the problem is, and unfortunately or fortunately, in a democracy, politics decide the fate of everything. Whether we like it or not, bad politics, no politics is not a substitute to bad politics. Only good politics is a substitute to bad politics. Unfortunately, there is no elaborate training. In the last 5 years, I have been striving hard in my legislative council and assembly. So there should be a lot of training. But my officials say that, sir, you are telling training, but who will come for training sessions? We had a training on information technology. After great effort, the inaugural session, Chief Minister came. There was full attendance. After inaugural session, the attendance has fallen to 20%. So the problem again is, I was in fact at one point of time toying with the idea, still toying with the idea of launching an Indian school of politics, so that I myself will train political leaders. But the problem again is, how many people will be really keen on doing it? Because the political activity in a democracy has become different from the kind of legislative activity. That's again a bigger problem. The grassroots political activity is quite different from a legislative activity. It is something like an engineer. When I teach at one of the reputed technological schools in Hyderabad, called the Birla Institute of Technology and Sciences, and many other places, The experience there is, sir, what we learn in the classroom is something different from what we do in our job. So this is the same with the politician also. What really matters to him in a society, before his electorate, is quite different from him what he does in a legislature. So the legislative institutions should devise methods for a closer legislative scrutiny. In fact, I believe that if time permits, all these legislation should be open for a wider public scrutiny also. Not just the legislative scrutiny. When you make a law, the law should be circulated to the people and let the people be involved. And parliamentary committees play this role. They conduct public hearings, they conduct expert interactions, and parliamentary committees proven to be a very good intervention. The only problem again is parliamentary committees are becoming source of good academic reading. So, fine good academic reading, but ultimately the governments have to implement it. Most often the government does what it wants to do, rather than what the legislature really debates. So most often the rule of the majority prevails. Nobody bothers whether 30, 40, 50 years ago, there was time when political parties across their political affiliations reflected on the issues. There was time when governments across the political affiliations accepted and adopted the suggestions of the political affiliations. There was time when governments were also sensitive to the political debates, sensitive to the legislative debates. What is happening over a period of time is the competitive politics. The competitive politics are prevailing over the legislature standards, legislative accountability, all these great words and phrases which we tell in our constitutional writings are increasingly being taken away by compulsions of politics, competitive politics, and as a result, the legislatures are increasingly becoming political houses. Yes, they are political houses, I do agree. But at the same time, beyond a point on a particular issue, the legislature should go beyond the political differences and to take a more serious view of legislative debates. So there are many other, I have only touched upon some issues related to democracy. There are problems, challenges, in fact, not only from the experience, the quality of debate is an issue, the quality of parliamentary debates, the disturbances in parliament, the number of parliament sessions are declining. In fact, the British Parliament meets for 150, 160 days in a year. The last Lok Sabha, the present Lok Sabha is still in session. The last Lok Sabha met for 66 days per year on an average. On an average, they met for 66 days. So there are questions about the kind of stalemates that continue in Parliament. There are questions about the role of opposition. Opposition quite often becoming a political opponent rather than a constructive critic of things. Because the moment you are in opposition, you are supposed to oppose it. So that is the level of people like us who are independent legislators take an independent view, but independent legislators have a little chance of winning the elections. It's not so easy to win the elections. I don't know about your experience, but in our country it's not so easy to win an elections. So automatically independents have a little role to play, and very rarely they get a chance to be elected. And the legislative debates are also give importance to political parties. Our experience in the last 5 years, we will be the last to be participating in the debates. When before all political parties are given a chance. Then there are questions about the nature of political mobilization. The politics should have a secular mobilization, but appealing to the narrow interests or identities of the people have become a means of political mobilization these days. This is some of the experience, because the parliaments are a reflection of society. When society, there is corruption, criminalization, the social identity is getting stronger, Parliament is automatically a reflection of society. It can't be away from society. So in our first Parliament, half of the members of the Parliament were advocates, were elite families. But slowly, people from different walks of life started entering Parliament. There are also other concerns because, like in United States, Congress also, the role of multimillionaires is increasing. Across the democracy, this is a major challenge. Even American elections, recent experience, it was the costliest elections in the history of United States. And this US Congress is a Congress with a maximum number of billionaires. The Economist, one of the leading international journals, commented very interestingly that there is also homogenization of politics, which means that different political parties are not in a position to present radically different alternatives. They were referring to the Western democracies, like the Republican Party, Democratic Party in the United States, and Britain, Germany, France. The beauty of democracy is the plurality of choices. Democracy is the diversity of choices, diversity of political choices. Democracy is not just a plurality of political choices, not a numerical plurality, but it is this diversity of political choices. But across the globe, across the world, not only in India, across the world, the trend is today the political diversity is wilting away. Political diversity is evaporating. So the major political parties are not radically different on many political positions, on many economic issues, many social issues. Political parties are not radically different. So this is again, because as a result what happens is people's interest in democracy gets reduced. This is what the Economist said. The reason why voting percentages have come down in many countries is the political system unable to provide radically different alternatives. This is a comment of the Economist on the Western democratic experience, and I think that is the comment. That comment is relevant to even not only India, in many democracies. So we have to ensure that polity and parliaments reflect the widest diversity. Of course, there should be consensus. Many people are worried about diversity, but I feel diversity has to be encouraged. Only thing is, there should be consensus on certain things, but at the same time, the polity should present radically different alternatives on a wide range of socio-political issues confronting the nation. So that kind of richness is getting reduced over a period of time across the world. These are some of the challenges in the given time I am trying to present, but still some of the points I have left out because of the paucity of time, and there is still time for interaction. I will reflect on those issues with your intervention, because I really don't know what exactly you want from me. That's also one reason I was a little hesitant to take more time. So I stop here and I invite your intervention, and I will reply. I'll also reflect on certain things based on your intervention and interaction. Thank you, friends.